Hey guys, welcome back to the Driver's Briefing, your favorite Formula One podcast where we talk about anything and everything Formula One. My name's Francisco, and here with me is my co host Santiago.
Hey,
Today's
everyone.
podcast, today's episode will be focused on the mid season review. We're going to talk about um, how the races have developed, how the drivers have developed, and I think we're going to close with some hot takes and our predictions for the rest of the season.
Yep, that sounds good. And just before we start, I'd like to apologize on behalf of on behalf of the both of us. Um, this episode might come a little bit late. We had some technical issues recording the first attempt at this podcast. Hopefully, the audio will sound better now.
It's only our
Um,
it's only our second episode, and we're already going late, so
yeah,
not something we want to get used to.
that's right. That's right. But anyways, we'll make it up to you guys with a much better podcast than what we were expecting to release. Um, on our first recording. So anyway,
Good
let's
thing it's not race week or anything, so we have a
yeah,
couple days.
it's still relevant. Whatever we'll talk about is still relevant.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's jump right into it. I say we start from the back of the grid towards the front as we discuss, how their first half of the season has gone and what we think the outlook looks for them for the second half of the season. So why don't we start with our favorite
Our favorite
backmarker
Canadians,
Williams?
our favorite Canadian duo.
Oh god.
um,
No, Alex Albon is in Albon. Alex Albon is in
no, I
Canadian.
mean, back markers, Lance Stroll, and um,
Oh,
if we
Aston
want to
Martin and
speak,
Williams.
if we want to speak of people at the back, I'm just gonna hate on Lance Stroll because I always do. Anyway, so
Well, let's
Nicholas
start with
Latifi,
Williams first.
yeah,
The
um,
other Canadian,
the other Canadian.
the only driver to start every race this season and not score any points.
Wow, that's a fun fact. um, I
Poor
think
Nicky.
I think we've talked a little about this. I think um the outlook on each of the drivers at Williams is very different. I think Latifi is just he's not having a great season. I don't know if we can say he's cut out for Formula One given the results that he's had. And I think this will be his last year in Formula One. I think we talked about it in the first episode, and I don't believe he'll be racing. He'll have a seat next season, but we'll have to see. And for Alex Albon, I think it's the complete opposite. I think that he's found a project that trusts him and a team that he can develop around. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Williams offers him a long term contract because I don't believe that he'll be in the fight for seats in Red Bull teams in the future. And I think Williams is a perfect fit for him. I think he can help them develop the team, develop the car, and grow with the team.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel for Nicky a bit before I get back to Albon. He's he had some strokes of good performances last year, and so I was really hoping that he would have built the confidence through last year with George as a teammate and be in a better position to have a good season this year. But it hasn't been the case clearly. Uh, Albon has outqualified him 11-1 this season. It's
Yeah.
just so one-sided at the Williams squad. And granted, Albon did have an upgraded car for a couple of races before Nicky got it, but even still, what about the rest of the races? And so Albon, I think, has done a great job coming back to Formula One. He's got two points finishes. I think he's at 3 points now. Um, so I think he's done really well. He's
I
well
think
liked in the
he
team.
got his best result in Miami, right? The ninth place in Miami.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
So
But
I think it's good. I think he's getting used
I
to the
mean, for
car. He's
Williams,
developing.
he's
Yeah.
and to put a Williams in the top 10 on race day. Um, that's not an easy feat, right? And he's done it twice. He's well liked within the team. He developed his car well, and so I see a positive outlook for Albon for the
And
rest of the season.
this season is also been, I think, more competitive at the back than last year. Haas has developed a better car. Alfa Romeo has developed a better car. So all in all,
Yeah,
I think it's a great performance from Alex.
I think so too. And we'll get to that as we move forward closer to the front of the grid. But I don't think there's such thing as real back markers anymore in the sense that everyone's a midfield car nowadays. I think that the regulations have done a really good job of kind of resetting the field a little bit, and allowing for closer racing. And so, the teams that are most punished, outside of perhaps Williams and Aston Martin, which we'll get to, are those who have been less consistent. And I think that shows throughout the grid because
I
in
think
the end,
that's
everyone
a
has.
theme that we've seen through the season is consistency. I think um, I believe consistency will dictate what the rest of the year looks like.
Yeah,
If I think we'll talk about it later on with the top teams, but I think that teams that can find the most consistent racing will be the teams that have the most success for the rest of the season. And I think it's a theme we've seen all through the year, and we'll keep on seeing it in the 9 races we have to go.
yeah, agreed. But anyways, just in short, I think Williams, they'll get a few more points, I hope and expect here and there, but obviously nothing too game changing or revolutionary. They're still at the back of the grid. They're still pushing towards the front, but I think they've done good progress, and so I'm happy for them. The next team that has had the complete inverse fortunes, having been a let's say top of the midfield team, and now sitting ninth place in the constructors championship, is Aston Martin.
I don't know if
Yeah.
I would say top of the midfield.
Well, they were competing.
They were,
Yeah, maybe not
but
top
not
top.
under the name of Aston Martin. They were when they were Force India or Racing Point, Blue Water, or
No, but
whatever the fuck it was called. Last year they did
last year
well,
they were solidly in the midfield. Maybe
but
they
they weren't
weren't fighting for
fighting. They
fourth
weren't fighting with
for fourth
McLaren. They
place.
weren't fighting
Yeah,
with maybe even Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine. I don't remember exactly the standings last year, but I don't remember
yeah,
Aston Martin being as involved in the fight as maybe McLaren were.
yeah. But
Um,
certainly not sitting ninth
not yeah,
place. That's
not
for sure.
sitting where they were, of course, and I think that's a product of a lack of faith in the project. I'm not really sure what they're trying to do over there. I know they're building the largest F1 factory in the world, and it's a long term project, but I don't see their I don't think that what they're doing with the team is reflecting that long term investment. Starting with Lance Stroll, I've said this before. I don't think he's a young driver that you can build a team around. And then I think the Alonso bet is just they're they're hoping he can help them develop a team for the future. We talked about him maybe having a role where he's more adjusted towards car developing and not just being a driver. Um, and I think that maybe will help them, but I'm not really sure.
I don't know. I gotta cut a bit of slack. I'll play the devil's advocate and I'll say, I think the investments in the infrastructure and bringing in Alonso, who at 42 is probably still asking for a few $1 million a year, for a driver
And I
that
think he
is we
wants a
all
mo-
know
I
won't be
think
there.
he's on a multi-year contract.
Yeah, he's on a multi-year contract, but I don't expect him to be there for 5 years, right? And
No.
so, um, Aston Martin's willingness to dish out that money on Fernando Alonso, who they know will be there to your point of developing the car more so than driving it. He'll be there to kind of push the team forward.
Yeah.
And the investments they have in infrastructure, I would say they are invested. I just don't. I think the crux of the problem is they, as AlphaTauri, who we'll talk about next, they haven't taken the leap forward that other teams did during the off season and into this new season, and that's hurt them quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
And they just
but
relied on their old tactics of trying to copy other cars.
it's yeah, which isn't really working
And
for
it's
them
not
this season.
working. Yeah, it worked 2 years ago. It's not going to work now.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they are invested in the long term. They just don't have,
We'll
to
see. I
your point,
mean,
Lance
I hope
Stroll.
so. It's a great
Yeah, but
project, and we'll see what. Yeah.
With Stroll in the car, that's maybe hindering them a little bit. There's better drivers on the grid, in my opinion, to fill his shoes.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and if we think about it, and I'm looking at the numbers here. I mean, um, well, yeah, Vettel has done much better scoring points wise than Stroll has. 16 to 4 points. Vettel 16, product of that sixth place in
I think
Baku.
Seb has done a great job. I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season develops because he's retiring and it's his last, and uh, I think he'll be
But
more
Vettel's a
focused
Vettel,
on enjoying his drive than just scoring
yeah,
points or whatever. Enjoying
but
his
he's still
last
a
couple
racer.
racer. Yeah, he's still a racer. So
I
I
mean,
hope
I
I
think
hope
racing
he
is
can
more.
leave Formula One on a good note.
Well, he'll never leave Formula One. I expect him to be one of those drivers who never leaves.
I mean,
So
leave the grid.
yeah, leave the cockpit.
Yeah, leave the cockpit because
But yeah, Vettel has solidly um outperformed Stroll both in qualifying and race pace. So which I expected, you know. But
so what Alpha
yeah,
Tower,
yeah. So AlphaTauri, as you mentioned,
you know my
I think,
thoughts. You know what I think about this.
but also consistency is the name of the game. We said it. We had talked about it off
Okay,
camera.
so let's talk about consistency. And
It's nowhere.
before we get into this,
It's
yeah,
nowhere.
I believe Pierre Gasly's stock has plummeted. I think he was one of the most coveted drivers in the grid in the last couple of years, the last 2 years maybe. He was performing extremely well in a midfield car, and then this year I just think that he's lost those results. He hasn't been able to deliver as he has in the last couple of years. And we're talking about consistency. Last year, I think he'd maybe be the most consistent driver on the grid. Like there was even memes about him always being P6 in qualifying. And then this year, I just haven't seen that. I don't know if it's due to the car being underdeveloped compared to other cars. But at the end of the day, I would still expect a driver of his caliber to have some standout drives during the season. And I just haven't heard Pierre Gasly's name enough during the season for him to be as important as he was last year or even 2 years ago.
Yeah, Gasly has certainly been much more inconsistent this year. I don't know if it's a product of his driving or a product of the car, but regardless, to your point, what the results show is, a lack of consistency, which in the end, both for him and for Yugi, have punished the team.
Yeah.
They're now in eighth place. They're used to being solidly
Fifth,
in the middle.
sixth.
Yeah, and
I
so it's they've dropped, and Gasly has, I think, 3 or 4 scoring races. The last time he scored was in Baku, where he got a fifth place, but
Yeah.
since then he's been scoring 11th position, 12th position. So it's
And
fine. You get
I
some
think
good
he's
points,
been good in
but
qualifying. He just loses a lot of pace in the race.
I don't know if it's due to him, or I know there's been incidents in races and he's had to DNF, and there's a few things that
Yeah,
have hindered
but
his
I
his.
mean, you still expect from Gasly, maybe not having a top 5 finish every race, but I was always used to him being in the conversation every couple of races. Maybe you wouldn't hear from him in 1 or 2 weeks, but then be like, oh my, he had a great race. Like he'd always be in that conversation, and he'd always have standout races during the year. And I just haven't heard about him. He hasn't been in the spotlight as much as he's used to be in the last couple seasons.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's a fair point. It's very difficult to be in the conversation when you're in P12,
Yeah.
right? But anyway, he still has, at least he has the comfort in knowing that he has a team for next year. I'm sure it's how the team he wants to be, and I'm sure though he has taken a leadership role in the team, and though he's become that
Yeah.
team leader
I
figure,
mean, but
he
at
wants
the
to
end
be
of
in
the
the top running
day,
team.
it's not AlphaTauri is probably the team in the grid where you have the least space for growth if you're not going to Red Bull, because
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's always going to be a team that's limited to being an academy team. They're not
yeah,
going
yeah,
to they're not looking to win. They're not looking to be the best team in the grid.
yeah. It's a
Every
place to
other
develop
team is looking
drivers.
for that. Every other team wants to be the best. They're just looking to develop drivers, and
Yeah,
for Red Bull, and as we, I don't, Gasly's not going to drive for Red Bull again. So for me, he has to get out. He has to get out of AlphaTauri, and I hope he does for 2024. I hope he
yeah,
can find a
you're
good
right.
drive.
Yeah, and I mean, AlphaTauri is the highest scoring customer team for Red Bull, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're a Ferrari junior driver or a Mercedes junior driver, you could start at Williams and then push up to or Williams or Alfa Romeo and then push up to Haas. Or I guess this
Yeah.
way it's the other way
Or
around. Shoot, it's
Haas,
the other way
Alfa
around.
Romeo, Ferrari, and then we have
Exactly. And
McLaren
then you go to
and
McLaren.
Williams. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think,
Exactly. And
yeah.
so you don't really have that with Red Bull. You're much more limited.
And at the end of the day, you
Um,
can win a championship in a McLaren. You can win a championship in a Williams. You can win it, like not during these years,
not
but
right now.
maybe not right now, but McLaren has won championships. Williams has won championships. They want to be the best. They're developing to be the best. They're all fighting for the top spot. And AlphaTauri is not. They're never going to
Yeah.
be in that fight.
Yeah. And so I think Gasly, this year he's focused on scoring good points. He has a contract for next year, but after that I think he'll be looking elsewhere. And I made my thoughts quite known on the first episode. I think he'll be an Alpine driver. It's a very romantic thought, but I think it's
We'll
a
see
good
what
place for him.
happens with Danny Rick in that sense. If he goes to
Yeah.
Alpine, or if he doesn't, if he has a multi-year deal with Alpine, or if McLaren say we can't pay the 20 million you're asking for, and then just keep him in the team as a miserable driver. We'll
Yeah.
see.
I mean, he'll sit out and just make some money. I don't think so. I think he'll find a drive. But anyway, before we move on from AlphaTauri, though, I do want to mention the other side of the garage and Yuki. He just hasn't been as the explosive talent, the promising
Explosive.
talent. And
Explosive in every sense of the word.
exactly. Well, I mean, he's verbally he's been pretty explosive.
I think he's
But
toned it
he hasn't
down.
delivered the exciting performances.
We don't
that
get
he has.
those radio highlights that we used to get last year of him just going off on his engineers.
That's true, but we still get every time there is a radio transmission on TV of him. He's always eating his mic. It's always like super close to the mic, like you know. Like it's I don't know what's going on with Yuki. I don't know if he's screaming, if he's just eating his mic, but it reminds me of a Call of Duty lobby every time he goes on the mic.
And he's cursing also, so it's just
Yeah, exactly. So it makes you feel right at home. It's like, am I loading up to Search and Destroy right now or what?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on Yuki? I just don't.
I think it what we said about Gasly applies to the whole team. I just haven't heard enough about AlphaTauri. Like, they're just there,
Yeah. Well, eighth place,
Yeah, nothing has stood out about them.
Yeah. The Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yuki has really strong backing by Honda, but
Yeah,
I just don't. I think they're better drivers, also. At least in my opinion.
then
We might have to cut Yuki some slack. Yeah, I mean, we have to cut Yuki some slack. Only a second season, but he hasn't impressed me so far.
Yeah. Haas has impressed me. Haas impressed me. No, they have. I think they did a great job developing their car. They found a driver in Kevin Magnussen that can help them, that he's been delivering. Lately, I think Mick has gotten into a rhythm of his own where he's kind of found, and he's been improving little by little. So I really hope he has a great end of the season. Because as we talked about Mick, he's a driver that you have to be patient around him. He's not going to be a Max Verstappen who gets into the car and wins his first race at Red Bull. He's a driver that I think needs maybe a couple of seasons to start to get into the rhythm and start to really show what he's capable in a Formula One car. Last year was a season where Haas had a horrible package. There was a lot of controversy surrounding the team, and I think they found a more solid project this year. And I really hope that Mick can show what he's capable of, because I think he's a great driver. I believe he needs time,
Yeah, and I hope they give it to him. I don't think anyone. Well, that'll contradict what I said last episode, but I think his spot at Haas, certainly it's not safe by any means. But to your point, he has been developing over the last handful of races. I think in my mind, from my recollection, I think the turning point for me has been in Canada, where he was in a very strong position, fifth or sixth, something like that, and then he had to retire. But you saw the confidence he had in the car, and I think he's carried that forward to the races since.
Mm.
So I do have a positive outlook on mixed season. Um, starting this next week onward for the remaining races. Similar to Kevin, I think Kevin has been a phenomenal driver this year. I didn't expect him to be this good. I will say,
I don't think anyone
from
did.
what I
I
remember
don't
him,
think anyone did.
yeah. I mean, from what I remember him in his previous stint at Haas and before,
He he was
I
there,
I
you
did not
know.
like him. He
Yeah,
was there. I did
I
not like him.
yeah.
But he's been doing a good job. The whole team's been doing a good job. They put all their chickens into one basket with this car having not developed last year, and I think it's paid off. They've made solid progress. Obviously, still not at the front of the midfield by any means, but they're in a very strong position compared to last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think everyone in that team should be pleased, and I'm eager to see them with this better team go back to Coda this year. I'm
Mhm.
sure that'll be great. Um, but you know, I think they're doing well.
Yeah.
We'll see if Mick is in that seat next year. I hope so. Um,
Alfa
but
Romeo.
Alpha sixth place. Now
Yeah, Valtteri's been killing it.
I think they've both done a really good job. But yeah, Valtteri, I'm so happy for him. I know we mentioned this off camera, but to see him leave Lewis's shadow
Yeah.
and be the team leader in a team, I think that's given him the confidence he
It was
needs.
just what he was looking for. You know, having a
Yeah,
team where he can really shine and be their number one driver and sort of lead, as you say. And it's worked great for him. He's
yeah,
he's been a driver that he was in Lewis's shadow, and because of that, I don't think we ever got to see his true potential. He was consistently second place and he was consistently at the top of the grid, but at the end of the day, he was competing with one of the greatest drivers of all time. And you're always going to get overshadowed by that. So there wasn't that there wasn't as much space for him to really show his talent and show what he's capable of. And I think that's exactly what Alfa Romeo have let him do. You know, really shine and be that guy who can take that team to the next level. And he's really delivered for them. So it's great to see.
yeah,
It's really great to see.
definitely. At this point, it's very difficult for me to kind of. I think they are very close to the level of McLaren and Alpine. The only reason in my mind they're in sixth is because of all the reliability issues they have. And for them. It hasn't just
Yeah,
been
Zoe has
the
been
engine.
Zoe has been the driver with the most DNFs on the grid. I think he has 6, so that's a hell of a. It's almost half of the races he didn't finish.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
yeah.
some due
Not all due
to
to reliability.
yeah,
Yeah,
some were, you know, he's a rookie driver, and you can sort of understand. Uh, I don't
or
think
also getting
anyone,
punted in
yeah,
Silverstone at almost to his death. I thought he was gonna die after that
yeah,
crash.
and that wasn't
Like
his
I
fault,
thought
you know. So
that wasn't his fault at all. He just got punted.
yeah,
He flew through the air.
so yeah,
Yeah, like more than
that was harsh.
did more flips than an
I
Olympic
think it makes
gymnast.
sense him being the only rookie on the grid and him being the driver with the most DNFs in a car that's not as reliable as other cars. And we're talking about consistency, and I think that that's been the missing piece for this team in order to fight with McLaren and Alpine. So
Yeah, because when they finish races, they finish in high scoring
yeah.
positions. You
So as I
know?
said, I think if they can they can solve their reliability issues, they can be in the fight for uh, fifth and
Yeah.
sixth place.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, they they haven't scored in the last 4 races, right? But then prior to that, they had scored in in 7 of the first 9 races, and it's just been
Yeah,
the reliability issues haven't just been the engine issues that all Ferrari teams have had. They've had gearbox issues. They've had fuel injection system
yeah,
issues. They have a lot of mechanical issues that are in their control that they haven't got atop of, and I think that's um to your point, that's what's holding them back because they've been doing a phenomenal job. Alfa Romeo, when they first came onto the grid as Alfa Romeo and prior as Sauber, they were right there with Williams as a backmarker team.
yeah.
They were like if they scored points, it was it rained in Alabama or it
Yeah.
snowed in Alabama. And
That's really good though.
now they score consistently when they're not DNFing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I think they've been a sleepy giant in that they're a really strong team that they're just not further up the grid because of other issues. But when they're there, they're there in the scoring
Yeah.
quite a few points. So anyway,
So let's move on
um,
to Lando Norris Formula One team.
well, I think is it McLaren?
Yeah,
I think
McLaren's
Alpine's.
fifth. No, Alpine's fourth.
Oh,
Yeah.
McLaren's fifth.
By 4
Lando Norris
points. By
Formula One
four
team.
points.
Yeah.
So Lando Norris Formula One team.
Man, it's like the disparity in the performance of the
I
two
think it's
drivers has just
the
been.
I think the I don't know. I think it's percentage wise in the largest percentage difference between two drivers in points is between Lando and Danny. Don't quote me on this, or maybe I'm just making it up, but still their difference is huge. And I really think that McLaren should be higher up. They should definitely be beating Alpine, but they only have one driver consistently scoring points. I think Lando Norris is single-handedly fighting against Alonso and Ocon, who on the like completely different outlook, they've both been very similar in point scoring, and they've both been very consistent. And Danny Rick is he's just going down, down. I
Yeah,
really
it's
thought last season, new car, whatever, you can sort of understand it, maybe give him a little bit of leeway because of his career and his trajectory in Formula One. And this year, I really thought at the beginning of the year I was really thinking this is Danny's, season to prove everyone wrong. And he
yeah,
hasn't. he did not.
it makes it very difficult to root for him.
Yeah.
And I will say, I mean, his lack of point scoring or him just not being there in the race, like it's hurt McLaren so much more than in just point hauls, right? Because strategy wise, it's always Lando against the two Alpines. So Alpines can play around with strategy, can mess around with him in the race. And Lando just can't do anything. He has no one there to help him protect the undercut. He has no one there to extend a stint. He has no one there to hold people back as he's trying to, climb up the grid after a pit stop. And so it's in all sense of the word, he's punching with one hand tied behind his back. Yeah,
The whole team
Danny
is
Rick.
McLaren
Yeah,
as a whole.
yeah. I mean, they definitely have the fourth place car,
Yeah, but not fourth
but
place drivers, apparently.
not fourth place in the standings
Yeah,
because they only have one driver
yeah.
who's contributing meaningfully to the car. Um, and so that's I think as the season progresses, Alpine will more and more cement their place in the fourth of the
You think?
championship because
You don't
Alpine
think
for sure. I don't
McLaren
think
will?
McLaren.
Okay.
I don't think Lando has it in him unless Danny Rick starts performing and starts consistently putting in not only points
That's an
but
interesting
high scoring
prediction. That's
points.
I want to agree because we've been talking about consistency, and Alpine has been by far the more consistent team. Uh, so yeah, I have to agree with you that I think Alpine will take the fourth
And
place.
I understand your hesitancy though because
Yeah,
McLaren has a stronger
they
car
have a
in my
stronger
opinion.
car, but at the end of the day, the
Because for
drivers have
things
not
that's been
been.
around,
Well, one of the drivers has not been delivering at all, and it's not even. Um,
well,
it's
not
not
now.
even if
He scored
he's
16
sometimes. Yeah,
points.
exactly.
He
It's
scored
not
the same amount
even.
of points as Vettel and then Aston Martin.
We can't even say he's sort of been in the fight because if we look at his results, it's just
No, he's been nowhere. He's been
15th,
nowhere.
9th, 13th, 11th, 13th, 12th, 18th, 14th.
Yeah, he's nowhere. He's nowhere.
He's nowhere to be
I'm
seen.
telling you, he has the same amount of points as Vettel, who drives an Aston Martin, who's
Yeah.
sitting in ninth place in the constructors.
And then we look at
Okay,
Lando, who's consistently best of the rest. The last 3 races, he's finished 7th. Then he got a 6th at Silverstone, and then he has his podium in Italy. He's the only driver out of the top 3 teams with a podium. So the difference between the performances in these two drivers is just I can't look past it. I think you're right. I think
no, because for
I
things to
think
turn
the Alpine will
around,
take.
if you have the Alpine drivers scoring highly, scoring, seventh, eighth position,
Because
fifth, sixth, seventh,
maybe,
eighth
I mean,
position,
maybe they get beat by Lando every single race, but at the end of
but
the
even
day, they're
still,
both there. So, yeah.
exactly. No, Danny Rick would have to had to contribute in a meaningful way, and that means scoring points consistently and scoring good points because 10th place won't suffice.
Yeah.
Ninth place won't suffice.
It'll
And so,
suffice if you're in a Williams or if you're in an Aston Martin, but
yeah,
not if you're in a
not to
McLaren.
beat Aston Martin. Sorry, not to beat Alpine. Certainly to beat Aston Martin. They're nowhere, but not to beat an Alpine. And so, I think it's in the tea leaves that Alpine will finish the season fourth unless Danny Rick can pick up the pace
Yeah,
in a meaningful way, which I don't expect.
I think Alpine's driver pairing has been really good for them. They've developed this like rivalry, but I wouldn't say it's an unhealthy rivalry. I think they've both done well. I mean, you can tell they can get a little frustrated in some
With
races, but
each
at the end
other,
of the
yeah.
day, I think it's creating this competitiveness around the team that's doing them. It's doing them really well.
They've really come up. I think both drivers, though sometimes to your point, they might get frustrated with each other. They're pushing the team forward.
Yeah,
And see that's what Aston Martin wants in Fernando Alonso that he's done for that team. Because since he got there with the El Plan,
el plan.
you know, he's
Yeah,
I
so
think he's really pushed the team forward, developed a car, and he's given them the consistency because he is a consistent driver, really strong driver, but also the experience that he has
yeah,
from all his years of
so
Formula One.
I'm looking here side by side to Ocon uh and Fernando's results, and they're both very similar. A lot of seventh, eighth, some
They're
sixth.
pretty evenly matched on Sundays.
Yeah. hmm
Which says a lot about Esteban Ocon as well.
Ocon,
I think
Esteban
Ocon,
Ocon. Yeah.
Ocon as well. I think he's another one of those that he
Yeah.
doesn't get talked about as much, but yeah, he's fighting consistently with Fernando,
Oh,
but
he's above
they've been
Fernando
doing a
in the
really good
stand.
job.
He's above Fernando in the standing, so
Yeah,
he's doing a great job.
they've both that whole team has been doing a really good
And
job. I
it's
remember
crazy
when
because Lando has 76 points and Esteban has 58 and Alonso 41. So
I'm telling you,
it's crazy. It's crazy how much Danny Rick's bad performance is influencing McLaren. It's insane.
yeah,
And McLaren
and
having 35 other drivers that they could put in that seat. It's crazy.
listen, and I just going back to Danny Rick just for a second. The point I want to make is, looking the outlook on the rest of the season. I think it's very dim for him because it's impossible if you can't really drive the car you have right now. Imagine trying to drive and wrestle with that car with the added pressure of every time you step outside of the car, the media is pestering you with questions of where
And
will you be next
I think
year?
it's not
Is
only
Oscar
the
Piastri
media
taking your
because
seat?
now it's evolved to also be his own team. His own team. They signed a driver without telling him. They want him out. Now he's got the conflict of the release clause and all that stuff that is also added pressure. So he gets out of the cockpit, and not only are the fans and the media saying, "Hey, what happened to Danny Rick?" but now his team as well is saying, "Hey, we don't really want you here."
Yeah, basic. And
Yeah.
so I think it's sad, but I don't think he's gonna have a much stronger second half of the season because of that added pressure that he didn't feel in such force the first half.
hmm
So yeah, I think it's smooth sailing for Alpine from here on, and it's very frustrating for Lando, who probably feels that he's doing as much as he can with the car that he has,
Yep.
and it's still not enough because it's one versus two.
So now, in I don't want to extend the episode so long, so I think it's time to move into the top three teams. And with the top three teams, I want to talk about them as a whole, because I think there's a lot to talk about in the sense of what's going to happen and what has happened. Um, So look, once again, consistency. Without a doubt, for me, the most consistent team out of the top three has been Mercedes. They've first we had George Russell with like I don't know
Consistently in
how
third
many
place.
races in a row he had a top five,
Yeah,
and then
the top
now
six.
with a top was it a top six or was it a top five?
I think it was a top six.
Okay, I don't want to. And then we have Lewis, who's had like five podiums in a row. You know, he's been third, second in the last five races. I think Mercedes have a great outlook for the rest of the season.
I would agree.
We can
I would
go on
expect them to
to
win one or two races as well.
yeah, we can go on to talk about some of the hot takes we have, but I'm gonna start off with mine, and that is I believe that Mercedes will finish above Ferrari in the constructors championship. Now, remember this is a hot take, and because I do think that Ferrari sort of are not acknowledging their strategies problems and their structural problems as a whole. So I think that's going to be reflected in the 9 races to come. And if Mercedes are still developing they keep developing their car, they keep developing their strategy, and they just get better and better, and they have that consistency, and they're constantly getting podiums. It's going to be very hard for Ferrari to be fighting with them if they can't fix their strategies.
Yeah, so Mercedes has done a really good job compared to where they were at the beginning of the season. The pre season testing where their car was just undrivable. They got their aerodynamics completely wrong. Their car was nowhere. The fighting spirit they have and the experience they have in winning has shown they're a well-oiled machine, and both drivers have been very consistent. They've scored really good points, and each time they're getting closer and closer to the top step of the podium. And so I do think they'll win one or two races this year, but that is a hot take. I'm not sure I agree. We'll see. Ferrari have by far and away the
The better
quickest
car.
car.
Oh, I agree.
By far.
Ferrari has the best car on the grid. It's just insane how they can't. It's almost as if they're saying, we have the best car. This is too easy. Let's fuck ourselves up, and
Yeah.
trip ourselves up. It's insane how they can't deliver with that car. And it's crazy to me that out of the 13 races, I think Ferrari has 7 pole positions, and they're getting destroyed by Max. They're getting destroyed by Red Bull. It's I don't know.
The
I
issue
find it
with them,
crazy.
these Italians, man, these Italians, and I hope we don't have any Italian listeners who'll be like, who'll criticize you for this, but they're so proud and they're so stubborn.
Yeah,
And the fact that Mattia Binotto is out here in the off season, or not the off season, in the summer break, saying that there's nothing wrong with what Ferrari's doing,
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with strategy. They've made the right calls. It's just been bad luck. It's like with that attitude, the attitude that everything's fine, there's no issues. You're not going to solve anything,
It's
and
a
you're going
piece of
to you're
shit.
going to commit.
It's a
Yeah.
Ferrari. And Nicky
That's
Lauda. Yeah.
that has been their attitude, and so it's just with that attitude you won't get anywhere, and in my mind they'll continue to make the same mistakes in the races to come, and at the same time they have everything to lose, right? Ferrari, they were the favorites early on to win. Now they're not in a constructor winning position, nor are they realistically in a drivers championship winning position. They have everything to lose. McLaren, they have nothing to lose, man. They were expected to be complete shit at the beginning of the season. They've slowly but surely climbed their way up. And so I expect Mercedes in the second half of the season to continue to steal Carlos Sainz's motto to be smooth operators,
Yeah.
forward. And Ferrari, I think the drivers will grow increasingly frustrated with the team if they keep fumbling the ball. It's I can see the tailwinds for Mercedes and the headwinds for Ferrari, but at the same time, Ferrari have such a dominant car that if and this is a big if they get on top of their strategy woes and some of their reliability issues, I think they'll be comfortably in second place.
No doubt.
I think it's too close to call
Yeah.
right now.
And I don't
There's
think
still
there's much to say about Red Bull. I think they've secured their first place. I think they've secured both championships.
by far and away. I think something catastrophic has to happen
Yeah, yeah.
for them not to take
Max
both
has been
titles.
driving out of his mind. Sergio he's been there. Really hope he
He's
can.
been there,
Yeah, he's been
and
there.
that's
I think he's had a lot of criticism that I don't think is that justified. I think he's done a great job. I think that the criticism he's had now is just due to the fact that he has stepped up his game. And so what was what was acceptable last season for him, this season is
is
the normal.
unacceptable.
The normal, he should be
Yeah,
in podiums. He should be fighting to win races, and he has. The last couple of races haven't been that great
he's
for
done
him.
what no other Max teammate has been able to do.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
And I think that leads me to my own hot take.
yeah.
I think in the battle for second place in the drivers' championship, Checo will be victorious. I think
So you think
end of the
he'll
season
beat
comes,
Charles to the second
he
place?
will beat both Charles and he will beat
George
Carlos.
and
The two,
Lewis and Carlos. I think they're
there
all
no,
in
those guys
the.
aren't in the
I
picture. I
think
don't
they
think
are.
George and Lewis are in the picture. Um,
I think they
I
are.
don't think so.
I think they are.
Listen, like um out of those drivers that you mentioned, Leclerc, Sainz, Russell, Lewis, Checo has the highest average scoring position.
Yeah.
If consistency is the name of the game, and it'll probably be the name of this episode because that's all we've talked about.
I think
He has been
I think he's
the
one of the
most
most
consistent
underrated
driver
drivers. Yeah, I think he's
outside
one of
of
the most
Max.
underrated drivers in the grid because he's not one of the drivers that loves to have the spotlight on him. He doesn't have an outspoken personality. He's just. I think he just
He's there to
gets there
race.
and he does his job, and he does his job
Yeah,
wonderfully.
yeah.
One of the things that was criticized a lot last year was his qualifying, and I think his qualifying, maybe in the last couple of races, hasn't been that great, but overall this year he's stepped up his game. He has a pole position, and he has outqualified Max, I think, twice.
He's more, and even still, he's more of a Sunday driver.
Yeah,
So
the Minister of Defense.
he's the Minister of Defense, the
Yeah,
legend. He
I'm never gonna
I don't
forget
expect
his one in
his
Turkey
defense
last
against
year.
Lewis.
The first one in Turkey last year, and then the second one in the last race of the year. It was insane. It was insane.
Yeah, no, he's such a great driver and he's
I
underrated.
think he's one of the
I
best wheel-to-wheel racers on the grid.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's really good. Um, but I don't think he won in Monaco ever since he hasn't been on the top step of the podium.
Yeah.
And it's been slipping away from him. But at the same time, he's finishing second. He's finishing third. He has the consistency. He has a team in Red Bull that have nothing to lose, or they not that they don't have anything to lose, but they've secured both championships realistically. And so once
So
Max wins a title, they can put all force behind Checo
it's
and just help him,
I'm
secure his second place.
so I'm looking at Checo's results here, and this is actually insane. So he has 3 DNFs. All right. Excluding his 3 DNFs, his worst finishing position is fifth, and he just finished fifth once. Out of that, he's had 3 4th places, and the rest have been podiums. I think that's crazy.
No,
Um,
he's been very, very, very consistent. He's a driver that Max needs, and his consistency, I think, is going to reward him with that second place at the end. If Ferrari, they keep again, they have Ferrari's not going to have, as we just mentioned, the pressure from Mercedes, and looking at Ferrari, they both drivers, Charles and Carlos, will have that pressure from Mercedes in the back
yeah.
that Checo will be protected from. So Ferrari's gonna be worried by that threat from Mercedes. In my mind, they won't solve their issues. While Checo, on the other hand, he has a team that works, a car that works, a team that loves him and is behind him. And
And
once Max
yeah,
secures a crown,
exactly. I think
he'll be the number one driver.
exactly. Once
You
once
know?
Max secures a crown, that it's just a matter of a couple of races. Then they'll be focused on getting that second place for Checo, I think, and that'll be
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think, and it'll be great for Checo. He's been a great driver for Red Bull. Uh, I think for both of them, just to close out, I think Red Bull has had, despite not having the quickest car, a dream season.
Yeah.
And Max is just driving perfectly. Max does not put
I
a
think
foot
both
wrong.
drivers have been delivering. Their strategists have been delivering. Their engineers,
Yeah,
everything. As a team, they're like a well-oiled machine.
yeah, yeah.
I think
And
Mercedes is a well-oiled machine as well, but they don't have the package and the car that Red Bull has this year.
yeah, I would agree. But
Um,
anyway, we'll see. It's just 1 week until well, I
Next
guess
2 weeks.
we're
Yeah,
yeah, it's 2 weeks because
less
we're
than two
filming
weeks.
this at
Yeah,
the beginning of the one weekend in between
yeah, exactly.
now and Spa. And so
So
we'll see.
we'll
The
see.
second half of the season will soon get started.
We'll talk about Spa next week and our predictions and what we have. Anyway, so thank you guys for listening. That's been driver's briefing. I'd like to do something since we talk about hot takes and we're including our hot takes here at the end of the show. If you guys have any interesting hot takes that you want to send us on our social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, or even if you know us, just tell us, so we can talk about them. I think that'll be an interesting dynamic. I think we're on at Drivers Briefing on Twitter, at Drivers Briefing, at TDB Podcast or something like that. I'm not sure if it's Driver
TDB
Briefing or TDB Podcast, but you can find us on social media. We'll link our social media in the description of the YouTube video. No, I think we can do that, and yeah, you can send us.
And for
your hot
YouTube,
takes.
like, comment, subscribe as well.
Exactly. All right. Thank you guys.
See you guys next week, hopefully on time for the next episode.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye, guys.